Rep. Krystle Matthews, how are you?
I am doing well, Clay. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to talking to you. I am happy that somebody is challenging Senator Tim Scott. It's been no secret how I feel about him. I think that he is an opportunist. I think that he shapeshifts around race. And we see that with a lot of Black conservatives, Black Republicans who get power. I think it's quite dangerous, actually, because he has that vote in the Senate. But I got to start here, Rep. Matthews. How are you going to do this? Jamie Harrison could not beat Lindsey Graham. He out fundraised Senator Lindsey Graham. There's been studies that have shown that white conservatives love Black Republicans. So you know that he has that white conservative base. He's gotten very little of the Black vote, but he hasn't needed the Black vote to win. So just logistically, the math, how are you going to do this?
So, as far as the math is concerned, Clay, we have plenty of opportunities to make sure that we come out ahead in this race. There are so many unregistered voters. And honestly, given the environment that we're politically in right now, there are a lot of voters who have walked away from the table. Black conservatives, I won't say all, but let's speak to Tim Scott. One of the things that I think he does well is hide behind the cloak of whiteness that the Republican Party is. When you are amongst a demographic of people who really don't have any criteria to judge you on other than what they deem necessary, then it's very easy for you to hide. And I think what running against me will do, because I'm most certainly a different type of candidate. I won my first race and I actually flipped the seat that he used to hold in the state house. And I only raised $720. Money doesn't vote, people do. And so the one thing that I have over him is that I am very grounded. People tend to cling to me because I am very brutally honest. I speak my mind. I love the Lord, but I do cuss a little. And, people are tired of being pushed in either direction based on whimsical ideas. And honestly, they're not too happy about him being a Trumper either. Even the conservatives are.
Why do you think he's resonated, though? I mean, he's been in South Carolina politics for a very long time. I think it's important to. I'm curious to know why you think he has resonated for a long time. And they're saying he could be, if Trump runs again, he could be Trump's VP pick. Why do you think South Carolinians have resonated with him?
I think he's been able to kind of be in the background. He's not had an opportunity. He's not had to really come out and speak for who he is as a candidate. When you ask people what they know about him, it's very general. They don't really have any details. When I ask people why they like him, they don't really have an answer. They don't really even know who he is. And so with me, I'm most certainly looking forward to debating him. I want to make sure that he has to come to the front and answer these questions out loud and for the people. And the one thing that he doesn't have with me is the ability to just, be the Black guy. I'm a Black woman. And so I get as many people in my district that are conservative voting for me as he did. I guess I would say my district is heavily Republican, heavy white. And they don't care because you know why? When they call me with issues, I don't ask them what party they're with before I handle their problems. I just get down to the bottom of it and try to get to a resolution. And that's what people are looking for.
So again, this is your second term in the South Carolina State House. Give me 3 things that you're most proud of that you've done in the South Carolina State House.
Well, I'm most proud of definitely making the most progress on the pink tax, which is removing the tax from women's feminine products. I am proud to be a part of the coalition passing the hate crimes law. I am also proud of what we just did this week, actually, with getting 2 weeks early voting for any reason and making sure that our election laws do not mimic all the entanglement that we're seeing across the U.S. right now. So we fought and worked very hard and diligently on that. And for me, I think especially in a state like South Carolina, voting rights are a major, major issue.
Absolutely. And the roots of South Carolina during Reconstruction, post the Civil War, South Carolina really has a robust, important history that we should always be sure that we honor and respect. What is your ground game like? Because we always say the largest voting bloc is the non-voter. How are you going to incentivize non-voters to vote during a midterm? You know, that voter turnout is sadly low during midterms, and they're just as important as a presidential election. So what's the ground game to get the non-voter out?
So honestly, Clay, let me say this. I am a very unique candidate. I was not born and raised in politics. So honestly, the things that I'm doing to get people out are the things that I would want people to do to get me out. I'm going places where people don't typically go, whether it's a club or, holding events that are a little more non-traditional, like a sneaker ball and things like that, because those are really, when you think about it, the factions of people who do not come out necessarily to vote or are not engaged. They don't really know what's going on. They may hear something about it in the news, but not necessarily tip all the way engaged in what's going on. And I am making sure that I'm doing that. I also have a host of volunteers from all spectrums that come out when we canvass these neighborhoods. We're doing all 46 counties. We're touching doors. We're knocking doors. We are making sure that we're getting out and letting people know what our campaign stands for. And we're also listening. I think that's something candidates don't do enough. They don't really listen and address the needs of the people. They just kind of smoosh through it, take a few pictures. Hey, I was here with these people, and then they move on and they forget about you. Well, I'm not known for that. So I'm going to continue to be more of who I am, just more in the public light, because I already have a pretty good reputation for being this person since I've gotten elected in the state house. And I very much I'm going to continue to do the same.
So when Senator Lindsey Graham was running against Jamie Harrison, he tried to turn Jamie Harrison into some radical left, activist. That was one of the things he tried to do. So Senator Tim Scott will most definitely try that with you. And there's going to be some talking points that he's going to jump to, which I've seen him do with other Democrats who he's not even running against. So what are going to be your responses when Senator Tim Scott says that, I don't know, you support defund the police? How will you handle that?
I've never said defund the police, but I definitely don't. And this is for any candidate, not just myself out there. When you're debating someone who is using catchphrases, don't repeat the phrase. I think that's one of the biggest, Democrats have a problem with messaging. One of the biggest things that I'm not going to do is, number one, repeat the stupidity that he says. But no, I don't. I support making sure that, first of all, I am known in the police community for saying we need to define what our officers are going to do. I mean, they've now become mental health therapists, they're mediators, counselors, they're babysitters. I mean, what is their job? What are we going to limit their scope to? And then how are we going to partner them with other entities that provide the wraparound services that are needed to actually make it function like it's supposed to? That's my response. But I'm definitely not going to repeat the language. Democratic messaging has got to get better. And I am not afraid to go toe to toe. I don't have the level of decorum that your usual candidates have. I won't lie to you. I will, if you talk to me crazy, I will say something crazy back. You're not going to just say whatever you want, and I'm going to play nice. That's over. I don't know that that's ever worked for Democrats, even though they think it does. But I'm not afraid to get in the mud. I like mudslinging a little bit.
And how will you handle critical race theory attacks? Because the Democrats in Virginia didn't handle that well. How will you handle that? That'll certainly be one of the talking points.
Critical race theory will most certainly be one of the talking points. I don't see us giving I'm not going to give a lot of energy to something that is pretty much made up. But what I will say is that, of course, nobody deserves to be made to feel lesser than, but how do people think we felt all these years? I would be really, really intrigued to hear Tim Scott's response to me asking, how do you think Black children felt all these years growing up thinking our only history was slavery? not knowing that we came from somewhere else, being taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America when he never even stepped foot in North America. Tim Scott doesn't have any children. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have a family. How can he really relate to the needs that we have? And when we talk about CRT, what connection does he have with schools other than taking pictures, where he would even understand what is going on current day that is being taught versus what people are saying? Most of the books that have been on the shelves that they're pulling off are hardly ever checked out and have been there for years. So like creating problems where there really isn't one. We have to stop giving light to things that they make issues. I feel like we got to be on the offensive. So fine, if you're going to take away our books, then you damn well better reprint the history books, because Christopher Columbus did not discover America, and I don't want my kids reading that then. So I keep telling people, you can't just play defense. You got to be on the offense too. There are things that we know are incorrect. Okay, fine. You want to take our stuff out? I don't know how they're going to teach about wars. They love wars in South Carolina. Slaves fought in the war, some voluntary, some involuntary. How are you going to teach about that if you don't talk about slavery? Good question. We're already short teachers, and now y'all are leveling another thing on them that they have to worry about and be concerned about losing their jobs over. I'm sorry. Are we heading in the right direction? Because it feels like we're not. So again, he's not affected when we don't have enough teachers. His kids aren't in an auditorium being taught by a principal. My kids are. I have 5 children that are in school right now. So we'll see how he handles that debate.
Rep. Matthews, let me ask you, and I've asked other candidates who are campaigning in the South as well. What do you think the disconnect is? Because even when I think of poor white folks in the South, this is an area that is predominantly heavily Republican. Up here in New York, for example, we kick them out. You know what I'm saying? Governor Cuomo, you're out. We've had Republican mayors, Democratic mayors, independent mayors. New Yorkers hate everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's, in a loving kind of way, in an irritable New York kind of way. But what do you think it is about the South where there is this loyalty, where it appears, in my opinion, that you have candidates, black or white, whether it's Senator Tim Scott or whether it's the governor of Alabama, appearing to advocate against the interests of their own people, black or white? What is it? What is it down there that it appears that some candidates like Jamie Harrison, and thankfully we have Senator Warnock rather, but that's so, Mike Espy, for example, he should have won in Mississippi, but there's this disconnect. What do you think it is? Because it's clear what the politicians down there have done to this beautiful area of our country.
Okay, you're not gonna maybe not like my answer, but I will say this. All skin folk ain't kin folk, and I'm not gonna call no names, but I'm gonna say even amongst some of the people that you guys know to be black candidates that you feel like are viable down here in the South, even they don't necessarily get down to the bottom of when we're talking about reaching people. Yeah, they go where it's comfortable. They stay right at that median line of the working class and maybe a little up. But as far as, talking to the man sitting outside the wine store, they don't know he doesn't vote. They just assume he doesn't. And so they don't talk to those people, and they don't really get down there unless there's a photo op or something like that. But one of the things that I see plaguing us continually is the fact that 2 things. Media loves to gaslight black issues. And when I say that, I mean, report just as much white on white crime, quote unquote,
Absolutely,
as you do black on black crime. It ain't just us fighting each other. It ain't just us shooting each other. It ain't just us doing crime. But it's so funny to me. It's like, oh, well, we want to highlight this. Just like right now with Ukraine, right? Is it right that Africans are having a harder time? Most certainly it is not right. However, the media couldn't wait to gaslight that. Why? Because it draws attention. I don't know if people are noticing the lack of bots that are on Twitter and things now that Russia is in this war. It just shows you when we talk about the last election, how many Russian accounts on Facebook were putting the Black Lives Matter and gaslighting that situation. we've got to be mindful of how we let people talk about us. So when we talk about the media, if you only see Black stuff, who do you think always has a problem? Black people. And then it looks like we're whining, right? So we're bad, we got issues, and then we're whining. And as I spoke at a Black History program in Hampton County this past weekend on my birthday Sunday, the theme was
Happy
Black
birthday.
excellence. Thank you. The theme was Black excellence. So I chose, instead of doing a traditional campaign speech, to talk about Black excellence. We've got to stop saying what we don't do well. There are a lot of things that we do tremendously well and don't get credit for. We were canning before there was cans. We were doing hair before there was a license. We were healing each other before you had to have a doctorate. We were doing foster care for our cousins and aunties who wasn't taking care of their kids before there was foster care. But we're not talking up, we're not bigging up each other like that. We're so busy tearing down. And so you've got to be mindful of the words that come out of your mouth. And down here in the South, if you make people understand that you are going to fight for them, they will get behind you. But when you have all these naysayers grabbing a piece off here and there, I think that is what tears us apart, because we keep saying we can't be together. We've got to change how we talk about what we're going to do. We can be together. We've done it. We've shown it year after year. It's us that came together. There's not a brand out, Clay, that is hot unless Black folks touch it. Mock me if I'm wrong. Nothing is hot until we touch it. I don't care if it's Michael Kors. I don't care if it's Louis Vuitton. I don't care if it's Coach. Unless we touch it, it ain't hot. We've existed before we touched it, but it didn't get hot until we touched it. We've got to be mindful of how we talk about us. And I think that is what plagues the South, because for so long, we've been told that we're not enough, or that we don't have power, and that it doesn't matter how you vote, it will always be the same. When I won my first election, people told me they didn't think it would change anything, but they liked me, so they would vote for me. And then when I won, the floodgates opened up. My Facebook, people come on because I teach them about what really happens versus what they think happens. I go live from the chamber. I think I'm like the only person, because I'm the youngest Black female in the house, but I definitely use my youthfulness to my advantage. It's my strong point.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is really important as far as messaging and how we operate with messaging. Let me ask you, the Senate is polarized, deeply polarized, and one could say it's always been that way. But nonetheless, it always being that way is still a problem. Obviously, if we have another Democratic senator in there, as long as we keep the ones that we have, that might be able to take away some of the power from Dixiecrats like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. But how would you negotiate, Rep. Matthews, operate in this deeply polarized Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Joe Manchin Senate?
I think my experience in the State House has really afforded me the opportunity to not only get in, but settle into how to make negotiations, how to actually partner when you have differing opinions. I sat by this man in an airplane, he's deeply Republican, and he said, we've got to bang it in and paint it to match. And what he was saying was that you got to find a way to deal with what both people want without necessarily getting stuck in the messaging. And I think people think Republicans are strong. And I like to say that a lot of times they're weak. And why I say that is because they're so worried about criticism from the public that they don't do what they even know is right. And at that point, it no longer becomes a Republican Party issue. That speaks to the individual. That speaks to your integrity, what you hold yourself at as a person. And I think my settling into the State House is definitely going to benefit me when it comes to negotiating in the Senate, because it's going to be very much of the same. And I think that my personality denotes that I don't really care about a lot of what I see in the news as far as people. I have an end goal. It's a job. I'm there to work. Let's talk about what we're here to do. I don't have time for all the fluff and go.
Policy-wise, point out some policy points of how you think Senator Tim Scott has been the most ineffective policy-wise.
Well, he represents South Carolina, a state that is 100,000 more women than men. And he votes no for almost all women's issues, even though he says he supports women. So I think that's pretty horrid. He also votes against everything that we really need to thrive. I mean, our cost of living is horrible down here. He voted against, the Build Back Better. He voted against infrastructure. He voted against the policing bill that he was working on, and then tried to, throw it under the rug as something else. But listen, qualified immunity, we all know that had to be dealt with, and so he knew that too. He just wanted an excuse to be able to throw it out. And so he's voted against everything that people down here literally needed to survive. I'm not independently wealthy. A lot of these things affected me directly. I've never filled out so many EIDL, PPP, unemployment. I've never done so much that in my entire life as I did in the last 2 years. I've never been present for as many evictions as I have in the last 2 years. I've never talked to as many landlords as I have had to talk to try and stay evictions as I've had to in the last 2 years. Where is he at? Where is he at when the people here need him? He's campaigning around other states. And that is where he keeps failing us time and time again. We need him to represent the whole and not the half.
Do you think Senator Tim Scott is upholding white supremacy?
Yeah. You know what they say, silence is consent. Yeah, I definitely think he's upholding white supremacy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You can't get around it. I digress on that. I digress on what I was going to say. I'll try to keep it kosher. But yeah, he talk about a minstrel show. I don't even know how he sleeps at night.
So it's going to be a long journey, campaigning moving forward. For those out there who might think this is too far-fetched for it to happen, this will be too difficult. They might have trauma over Jamie Harrison not winning. What do you say to people who say this is a huge feat and just the how? Because a lot of times I think some candidates fail because the people may not have the vision that it's possible. And if you don't believe it's possible, then you're not going to engage. So how do we make them know that this is possible? This is not a quote unquote waste of your vote.
I most certainly think this is not a waste of your vote, but I will say this, Clay. People that say it can't be done should not get in the way of those who are doing it. Even if you don't believe it can be done, you need to get behind your strongest candidate to make sure that you're supporting them. Democrats have to get out of the mindset, and I won't just say Democrats. Let me stop saying that because I don't consider myself a super Democrat or anything. But you cannot get in the mindset that you only get involved in races that you think you can win. You have to get in every race and every level of your society to make sure that you're pushing the agenda that you want to have. And when we talk about, I hate when I hear people say hold politicians accountable. Most people don't even know what that means. They just say it. It sounds good. It's a feel-good phrase. But if you really want to hold people accountable, you do it with your vote. You get with people in your neighborhood, in your schools, in your factions, in your community, your family, and you say, we're going to talk about what is going on, and we're going to invite them. And if they don't show up, they don't come, and they don't answer our questions, we're going to withhold our vote as a block. That will make them move. You mark my words. They will come to wherever you are. They will find time to come and talk to you. If y'all start amplifying, they'll be like, you know what? Wait a minute. We need to get over there because we need to address this. But people need to understand that my race is winnable because we have over 200,000 voters that are unregistered. We have thousands and thousands of voters who have walked away from the table because of the polarization of politics. And I won't say any names, but nobody has a ground game like my ground game. My Reimagine plan is not only going to set the infrastructure in this state for my campaign, but for future campaigns. We're making sure we're training volunteers to be able to get up and run this stuff by themselves. A lot of times people don't get involved because they're uncomfortable with what they don't know. But that's what my campaign is here to change. And not only that, but I love young people. I love college students. and I encourage them to participate in my campaign if they have ideas and things like that, because that is the wave of the future. We can't keep campaigning the way we used to and hope for something different. If you have ideas on media, if you have ideas on outreach, my campaign is the platform where I am allowing them to come in, get their feet wet. Let's test out some other stuff that we haven't tried. I'm most certainly not traditional. I didn't knock one door in 2018, and I still won. But people think that, I knocked. When you listen to the news, they made up all kind of stuff like, oh, she knocked doors, and I'm just watching the news like, I did. Yeah, I didn't knock any doors. But people think that this is how you have to campaign, but what people think in the reality sometimes doesn't match.
I want to thank you for coming on. Of course, we know running for Congress is really expensive. It's wildly expensive. So if you can support, go to MatthewsForSenate.com. That's MatthewsForSenate.com. Once again, Rep. Krystle Matthews is running for Senator of South Carolina against Tim Scott,
And when I win, I'll be the first woman we've ever had in South Carolina. We've never had a woman from South Carolina, ever.
And considering the state is 55% women.
Exactly.
It's obviously time for that. It's obviously time for that.